Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Illuminate session, where I'm being joined by Natalie Mosley Klenotic, who is a best-selling author of See You Later, a memoir of life calling me from beyond, Down the Rabbit Hole of Narcissism, Life Under Narc Attack, and a children's book called Daddy's Not Gone, a children's book called Gage and the Invisible Illness, One Boy's Battle with CRPS, and a parent companion book, It Hurts So Bad and No One Believes Me, One Mom's Guide, Raising a Child with CRPS RSD, and all are available on Amazon and Kindle. So welcome, Natalie, and thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to meet you.
Wonderful to meet you as well. And I love the universe always kind of aligns us because I saw your post by happen chance about your experience with your husband. And that's actually what grabbed my attention. I was like, I really want to talk to her. I want to hear her story. So, can you tell me kind of what happened that created everything that's kind of come out of that since?
Sure. Well, I'll give you a little bit of past history. My first husband and I met, we were high school sweethearts. We met when I was 15 and he was 16. And the first few days we were talking and kind of getting to know each other, he told me that he felt we had always known one another.
Mm.
He said, when I saw you, it felt like I already knew you. And it was like, I was kind of like, what are you talking about? Like this
Yeah.
is like 1986, 87. And I'm like, that was a little out there for me. I was like, okay. And he's like, no, I really feel like seeing you has unlocked it. He goes, it's like I'm filling you in on my life and catching you up to where I am, to where you are. We're going to get to know each other again. And I'm like, all right, okay. That's interesting. And then not even a week later, we started chatting when we were really like officially dating. He told me that if anything ever happened to him, that he would reach out to me and that he would find me.
Mm.
And I'm 15, he's
Yeah.
16. And I'm like, nothing's going to happen, dude. We're fine. Everything's great. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, he goes, if anything ever happened to me, would you want me to reach out to you? And I was like, as a ghost, or, like, I was like, I don't want somebody hovering over my bed and, like freaking me out. And he goes, no, he goes, you would want me to reach out to you, right? And I was like, well, like, how would you do it? And he goes, well, you're going to make me figure something out. He goes, if it ever happens, I'll figure something out.
Mm.
And he goes, I would want you to find me. And I was like, what? And I was like, okay, so, we had these little conversations and then I began having these nightmares that I didn't realize were premonitions.
Okay.
I began having nightmares about a month into us like officially dating. And I would see him dead and I would see him dirty. And I always saw his hands reaching up to me.
Mm.
So I told him about the nightmares. I told him, I'm having these bad dreams. And he's like, he goes, no, he goes, you're just worried about me. He goes, nothing's going to happen to me. You're just worried. And I'm like, well, that is true because I lived in an abusive home and my parents had never told me that they loved me. They had never hugged me. I didn't have any emotion or love in my home.
Yeah.
He was the first person to ever tell me that he loved me. And so
Okay.
I was worried about him. I did worry. So I played it off and I thought, well, he's right. Well, the dreams got more detailed. The longer we dated, I would have these dreams, and eventually a baby girl was in the dreams. And this is while we're in high school.
Yeah.
And in the dream, a lady took this baby from me and said, you're too upset. I'm taking your baby.
Mm.
And he came back and he gave me the baby and he goes, take care of our little girl. I know she'll be okay with you. So 2 weeks before he had a tragic accident and ends up passing away at the age of 22, he had joined the Navy and he joined right out of high school. He graduated early and he did it so that we could get married and we could move away from my abusive family.
Yeah.
And we did have a little girl. And 2 weeks before he passed away, I had the final nightmare premonition and I saw him in a coffin.
Mm.
And I told him, I said, the dream has changed. I saw you in a coffin. And he's like, don't worry about me. It's fine. And I had been worried about him at work because he had been doing something that was a little bit dangerous at work. And he said, nothing's going to happen to me. I'm going to be fine. So I went to visit him. He never called me to visit him at work. He was stationed on board a ship called the USS Flint. It was an ammunition supply ship.
Mm.
He called me mid morning, and I just laid our daughter down for a nap. She was 16 months old. And he said, "Hey, I have an inspection. Can you bring me my lid?" Which is his hat. He said, "I need it to pass the inspection." And I said, "Oh." So I just laid Hannah down. When do I have to be there? He goes, "No rush." He goes, "Just get here before the end of the day. It'll be fine." And he told me what he was doing for the day. And it's the same thing that I knew was really dangerous. And I
Okay.
said, "Why are you doing that? You had agreed that you weren't going to do that anymore. You weren't going to do that job." And he goes, "I can't tell the Navy no. I can't say, hey, I'm not doing that because this is dangerous." And
My wife told me I can't. You can't say
yes,
that.
yes. He goes, "I don't work at a grocery store. I can't be like, I'm not going to stock the shelves.
Yeah.
And they were having him take shortcuts on this ship, and they all knew it. And it was dangerous. The way he was doing it was dangerous. And so I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, I get it." I said, "Well, I'll be there as soon as she gets up from her nap." And he said, "Okay, I'll see you later." And we always said, "See you later."
Yeah.
When we very first met, he didn't like the words goodbye. If I would say goodbye, I'll see you later, he goes, "Don't ever tell me goodbye.
Mm.
Nobody's waiting for you after a goodbye.
Yeah.
Always say see you later." So I always did. So I said, "I'll see you later." He said, "Okay, I love you." I said, "I love you too. I'll see you later." Well, I sat around for about 30 minutes and I decided, I'm just going to go ahead and get her up. He worked in Oakland. We lived in Novato, California, which is about 15 minutes north of San Francisco. It would
Okay.
be a solid hour drive to get to him. So I was like, oh, it's going to be 2 hours out of my day. I'm just going to get her up. I'm going to go. So I get her up and I get her in the car and we're driving. We get across this bridge. We're almost to the bridge. And she starts to cry and throw a fit. She dropped her bottle. So I pull over. I get the bottle. I give it back to her. Delay, delay, delay.
Yeah.
So I finally get to the ship and I get my daughter and she looks up. And I thought she was looking at the ship, but after, I'm not so sure now. She looked up and she goes, "Daddy." And I said, "Yeah, Daddy's on the ship. Daddy's on board." And she goes, "No, no, Daddy." And she just kept pointing up. And I was like, oh, she must mean, we're going to the ship. He's that way. I get her. I go up the gangplank. I'm on the gangplank and I'm at the ombudsman that lets you on board. And I'm only on board maybe 30 seconds. And I tell him, "Hey, I'm here for Mosley. I've got his lid. He's got an inspection. Can you get him?" He goes, "Oh, hey, I know Tom. I'll call him for you." Standing there in the sun, I'm playing with my daughter and alarms start to go off. And I'm just like, oh, this sounds serious. Like I probably shouldn't be here. This sounds, like an emergency.
Yeah.
And so the ombudsman looks at me and he's on the phone and he goes, "She's standing right here." Like, what? I said, "Oh, are you talking to him? Tell him, just come get this and I'll go." And he goes, "She's right here. His wife is right here." He hangs up the phone. And so I say, "I'm leaving. I'm going to go. I don't think I should be here. Something's going on. I can feel it."
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, we can't let anybody off or on when this kind of thing is going on." And I said, "Well, what kind of thing is what's going on?" And then the next thing I know, his best friend, who was a physician on board, pops up from below and is staring at me and looks at me like he's seeing a ghost.
Mm.
And he goes, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, Tom just called me a couple hours ago." I said, "I've got his hat, his lid. He's got that." I said, "Can you just give this to him? Like, I'm going to go. Like, I don't know what's happening." He goes, "No, no, let's get you out of the sun. Let's go down below." We go down below and I swear I heard his voice. I swear I heard my husband. The physician, his friend, sounded like my husband for a minute. And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Why are you here again?" And I said, "Well, for his inspection." He called me. He goes, when did he call you?" I said, "A couple hours ago." He goes, "Natalie, I'm so sorry. Tom's had an accident."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, did he break his arm? Like what?" I'm thinking accident.
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, Natalie, he died. He just died."
Oh my
And I'm
goodness.
like, "What?"
Yeah.
I I couldn't comprehend it. I'm
Yeah.
holding my baby. And next thing you know, there's people filtering in and out of the room. And I'm just sitting there and I don't know where his accident was, but I looked up and I said, "Tom Mosley, you get back here." You get back here.
Yeah.
And so everybody's just looking at me and they're like, is there anybody we can call? What can we do for you? And I'm like, I have nobody. I have no one. My
Yeah.
best friend at that time was in another state visiting her family because we're all transplants. And I'm like, I have no one. I have nobody, nobody. So
Yeah.
somehow they called my parents. I don't remember giving them the number. I don't remember. Next thing I know, I'm on the phone with my mom, and my mom doesn't even recognize my voice. She tells my dad that there's a prank call coming in. Says someone's pranking us and saying their husband's dead. Can you get this girl off the phone? I don't know what's going on. My dad gets on the phone, and think again, I'm not very close to my family members.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not great. So my dad answers. He goes, "What's going on?" And I said, "Tom just died, Dad. Like, I just got here, and I just stepped on board, and he's dead." He goes, "What? What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Tom's dead. Like, they're telling me." I said, "He's not really dead, right? He's not dead." My dad's like, "Yeah, I think what's happening? Where's Hannah?" And I'm like, "Well, somebody took her because somebody took her out of the room because I was crying."
Yeah.
And next thing I know, they're telling me, my dad, we hang up with him. They're telling me again that Thomas died. And I'm 21 years old.
Yeah.
It just starts to you just waited. You just have shock.
Yeah.
And like, I just talked to him, and you think, how can someone be dead that I just spoke to him?
Yeah.
Like, I was seconds from seeing him. Like, so, I tell them I can't believe it unless I can see him. His death was tragic. He was crushed while doing maintenance on a weapons elevator,
Mm.
and it was catastrophic. So they would not let me see him, and they were right to not let me see him.
Yeah.
But then JAG has to come. The Judge Advocate General comes, has to do all their photos and dissecting the accident and what happened. And they were going to interview me. But his friend, Brian, said, I'm not going to let them do that to you. I'm going to sneak you off of here. We're going to get you off of here.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I have to see him, or I don't believe it.
Yeah.
So this whole time in my mind, I'm talking to Tom. I'm like, where are you? Are you all right? What happened to you? Where are you? Like, you always told me, because he would be gone for boot camp. He would be gone for A school. He was gone for Desert Storm. He was gone for 9 months for a Westpac. But we used to joke. He's like, I always get back to you. I will always get back to you. I'm always coming back. So I'm like, you said you're coming back. Like, where are you? Like, are you okay? Like, I'm so worried about you. I kept worrying about him being away from me,
Yeah.
because we were like this.
Yeah.
So they take me home finally. They did let me see him. They let me see him at the military hospital. And I have a vague recollection of seeing him, and it's lighted, and he's under mounds of blankets because he was crushed.
Yeah.
So all I could see was his face. And I told him, see you later. I said, Tom Mosley, I'm not telling you bye. I'll see you later.
Yeah.
And so I hear everyone crying behind me because they're like, I didn't know what he looked like. My brain wouldn't let me see his face
Yeah.
the way everyone else was seeing him. And so I was telling him, I'll see you later. I love you. I'll take care of Hannah. And then I leave, and everybody's like, how did you do that? How did you? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I couldn't see it. My brain wouldn't let me see it.
Yeah.
So I finally go home. They took me home. And by this time, it's starting to be dusk. So I go in the house, in the apartment. Someone took my daughter for the night, and they said, we'll watch her. We had friends, and they said, we'll watch her. And so it's just me. So I go in, and it's a little dark, and I have a radio playing, and I hear the music on the radio. And then I decided, well, I'm going to call my best friend in Pennsylvania and let her know what's happened.
Yeah.
So I go to the phone, I call her, I spill into the phone. I tell her everything that's happened. And she's like, and I can't believe that I'm not there. Like, I'm here. And so I was like, well, I guess I got to go. I got to figure some stuff out. Like, I guess I'm moving back home, which is so scary.
Yeah.
And then from that trip, I go into the family room. I start to fold laundry. The dry cleaner calls. A lady calls with the dry cleaner and says his uniform's ready. And I was like, well, he won't be picking it up. And she's like, you need to come and pick it up. It's been here for a week. And I'm like, I'm not. no. Like
Yeah.
I don't think he or I will be picking that uniform up anymore. It's gonna, so I hang up the phone and I sit there and I'm literally thinking, where are you? Are you okay? Like, are you all right? Like, I'm trying to piece together what I've heard, what happened. I'm like, oh, like, I hope you didn't feel it. Like, I'm like, are you okay wherever you are?
Yeah.
And I sit there and the phone rings. And it's the gigantic, walkie-talkie looking phones like we used to.
Yeah.
It's this big clunky thing, so I pick it up, I turn it on, and he and I have had, as I've said, he's been away so much, hundreds, thousands of phone calls, letters, phone calls. We've talked on the phone a million times. I pick up the phone and I'm like, hello. And he goes, hey, you. And that's how we always talk to one another. We never said hello. We said, hey, you. And he goes, hey, you. And I was like, what? I was like, who is this? And he goes, you know who this is. It was him. It
Wow.
was him. As sure as we're sitting here, it was
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
I'd already had multiple phone calls. I'd already, had the whole day transpire. It's now hours later.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's like, are you okay? I'm like, it's you. Are you okay? And he's like, I'm all right. He goes, I just want to let you know that I'm all right. He was hearing me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. So then I kind of and then I started to get really cold.
Yeah.
And my daughter had a blanket that we let her play on the floor. And I grabbed it and I covered my legs with it. And I was like shivering and I was sweating, just like profusely sweating. And I was freezing from the sweat, from the cold. And what I didn't know until later is that happens, is that happens. They're
Yeah.
cold. And I think the phone, thinking back, I think it was just a conduit. I think he was in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I'm like, am I going to be all right? Am I going to be all right? Because I'm fearing going back to the family that I know doesn't like me very much. And he's like, listen to me. He goes, listen to me and take this in. He goes, because you might not remember it after I say all of it. He goes, you're going to be all right. You too will be all right.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I'm like, oh, I'm alone again. Like, I'm all alone. I'm alone. He goes, you're never alone again. I will always be around. I will be with you forever. And he goes, I'm so sorry we don't get to spend the rest of our lives together. And I said, I know. I was like, I know, me too. And I was just like, okay. I said, well, I love you. And he kept trying to say, see you later. He kept trying to wrap it up. And well, I'll see you later. I'll love you forever and I'll see you later. And I was like, Tom Mosley. I said, I'll love you forever too. And I said, I'll see you later. And he goes, I'll see you later, girl. And then the phone went dead.
Wow.
And it went to like a dial tone, like I had just picked it up.
Yeah.
So then I hung it up. And I've always been a girl that's had a journal or a diary. I've had one since I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And that journal and that diary is really what wrote my first book. I used everything from within my journals and from letters and love letters. I ran down the hall and I just regurgitated everything that had just happened on the phone
Yeah.
because I was afraid that I would forget it.
As we do. Yeah.
Right. But I do think it's almost like he was telling me it and I was maybe supposed to forget it. Like it was supposed to push me on. Like
Mm.
she'll hear this and then it'll be gone. I wrote it all down.
Yeah.
And I never told a soul. I didn't tell my parents. They weren't close to me. I didn't tell any friends. I didn't have anyone that communicated like he and I always had.
Yeah.
And he was like, we're going to be in every life together. We're going to be in every lifetime together. This is not the first one. This is not the second one. We're going to be together over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I was like, the person I would have told would be him.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I didn't have him to tell. So years later, when I first began to date again, I went on a blind date with the man that's now my husband. And I knew him a few days and I hadn't told anybody. I'd gone on a few other dates. I'd, made some new friends. I'd never told anyone this story. And I don't know why, but I told him.
Okay.
I said, hey, can I tell you something? I said, it might sound a little weird. And he's like, well, what is it? And I was like, well, my husband called me after he died. He called me on the phone and we spoke. And he's like, what? He's like, wow. Because that's incredible. He goes, well, what did you say? So I told him what we said. And I was like, you believe me? Like you, because I don't know if somebody told me that I would believe. I'd be like, wow, that's a little out there. But he goes, why would you make that up right now? He goes, I 100% believe you.
Mm, yeah,
And then I told our daughter, my Tom and I's daughter, when she was old enough to understand. And then he and I had children. So he and our children have always known. As soon as they were old enough to understand, I told them
yeah,
because that phone call changed my entire life.
yeah,
That young man changed my whole life. And then he gave me the gift of, I'm going to see him again one day.
yeah,
Heaven is real. He's out there. I feel him. He is there. And I'm not afraid anymore. And I can't wait to see him again one day. I don't want to die,
yeah,
but,
yeah,
but I can't wait because I know he's there. He's waiting.
yeah. What an amazing, amazing experience. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I felt myself going through like streams of just like goosebumps kind of washing over me as you were sharing that experience. And to
Oh,
go through that at such a young age when, you really haven't even figured out your own life yet. And now you're having to kind of work through grief while also being a mom, like just so much love and compassion to you for what that experience was. And
oh, thank you.
then for you to take that experience and write it into a book. Can you share more with us about what your book is about and kind of everything that you kind of unleashed into that story?
Sure. Well, COVID, as we all know, happened.
Yeah.
And, and I was locked down. My husband was one of the necessaries, and he went to work every day. And he had always known this story, and he didn't know exactly all the abuses of my childhood.
Okay.
My first husband did because he was there with me. He was there during some of it. We were young. And so COVID happened one day. I got out of bed and he was still home. And I said, you know what? I said, I think today's the day I'm going to write my book. And he's like, what book? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I'm going to tell people about that phone call. He goes, are you sure? Like, because I wasn't really worried about being disbelieved so much because I don't care. If you believe me, you believe me. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
If you don't, it's not your time to understand it. And it's okay too. Like, it's okay. But the reason I really wanted to reveal it and write the book is because I wanted people to know him.
Mm,
He was amazing.
yeah.
He changed my entire way of thinking as a little 15-year-old girl in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like him saying, I've known you my whole life. We've known each other. We're going to know each other, forever and ever. And I'm like, what? What? He just blew my mind.
Yeah.
And we had this relationship that was unlike anyone else's that I had ever heard. And I've been around a while now and seen movies and books. And so I was like, I want people to know that young man came into my life and he changed my whole life.
Yeah.
He loved me. And I wanted people to know that he loved me so much. He called me after he died. Like, that's love. That's incredible. What a gift. And
Absolutely.
I will forever still always be emotional about it
Yeah.
because it happened. And when I think about the conversation and I think about him, I'm always emotional
Yeah. And I
because,
mean, I find it so crazy to think that people think at some point you should get to a point where you're just not emotional about losing these people you love. And it's the biggest fallacy when it comes to grief. That grief is an experience of life, and it's going to come
yes,
up in whatever
yes,
way it comes up, a song that triggers it, a conversation that triggers it, reading a book that triggers it, and it's okay to have those emotions.
right. And so I wanted people to know him and know our relationship and how unique it was. And then the goal of the book, besides Tom and people really knowing what an amazing young man he was, is that I want people to know that heaven is real.
Yeah.
It's real. There's another realm. They're out there. They're waiting. They're there. And I know so many people that are afraid of dying or don't believe in there being anything else after this. I really would love for them to read the book and just truly know it happened. It happened as sure as we're sitting here today, and it's changed my whole life. And when I decided to finally relive that, little did I know all of my stuff would come up.
Mm. Yeah.
because I wanted to write about him and how we met and our relationship and high school and, getting married. And then my stuff poured out. And
Yeah.
so then I've had a whole other side that I've had so many people tell me that they feel less alone now.
Mm.
They felt like they were the only one that had that going on when they were a child or when they were young, and they feel seen and heard because I have finally just, and I didn't write it as a vendetta or to get back at my parents. There's none of that. I'm not bitter. I'm not
Yeah.
angry. It happened. It's just my story.
Yeah.
It's just my life. This is how I was raised. This is how these people treated me. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And when all my stuff poured out, I finally allowed myself to truly mourn
Mm.
because I had a little girl. She was 16 months old. I didn't want her to see me crying every day. I didn't
Yeah.
want her to have that affect her. I didn't want her to feel like her world was over because mommy's still here.
Yeah.
And I was a mom. I dove into the whole mom, like,
Mm.
it's you and me, girl. We're gonna live this life. I'm gonna make it still a great childhood for you. We're gonna do the best we can. And we were buddies. And
Yeah.
I didn't really get to lay down and die. And
Yeah.
maybe that's a good thing. But I didn't have parents that would say, hey, let me take Hannah for you for a couple hours so you can just be alone or, have
Yeah.
a moment.
Yeah.
I never had any of that.
Yeah.
So I finally really mourned and it felt good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I imagine that as you're raising a young person, there is no space to be able to go, you know what, I just need to grieve today. So if you could take care of your own needs so I could grieve, it doesn't happen that way. And
Yeah.
what a tribute to you as a mom that you really had to suppress all of that for as many years before you were able to start really expressing it. And
Yeah.
it's just so amazing and so empowering to know the timeline of when we allow ourselves to grieve. It doesn't matter. The grief will be there. As soon as you're
Right.
ready to unlock that door, the grief is going to be there.
Yeah, you're so right. And it's actually made the relationship with my children even better
Yeah.
because they didn't know how dysfunctional my relationship was with my parents.
Mm.
They knew my parents were not super loving and they would be weird every once in a while and stop talking to us. And then they would just show back up. And it's been like that forever until it finally ended.
Yeah.
And they always, I'm sure there's a part of them that thought, like, get it together, mom. Like, can't you just make your relationship with your parents work? Like, figure this out. And then when I finally wrote everything out, they're like, Mom, you never told us all that happened.
Mm.
Like, why didn't you tell us? And I was like, well, because I didn't want it to taint your relationship with them.
Yeah.
I didn't want it to be, well, my mom hates you because, you did this or that, or she doesn't like you, or, I wanted them to have their own relationship.
Yeah.
And they did. But then when they saw that, then of course they're like, you should have told us. Like, we would have understood a little more why, things were the way they were. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, now the time was right. Now you know, and you've heard, and they make their own judgments. And, of course, they don't really want anything to do with them. My parents abandoned me about 15 years ago. I didn't ditch them.
Yeah.
After everything they did to me, all this stuff that I wrote about and I wrote about in my follow-up book, Down the Rabbit Hole of Narcissism, it doesn't just end because my person died.
Yeah.
It kept going. It just kept dysfunction after dysfunction. And then one day, both of my parents said, they were done with me. They weren't going to talk to me anymore. My dad said that. My mom just disappeared. She never called me again. One day she just disappeared. And
Wow.
I never heard from her again. And she was abused too. So she was the one person I thought truly understood what we had gone through. And then she disappeared. And so now that my kids have read that, they're like, now I get it. Your parents are narcissists. Like, they're dysfunctional.
Yeah.
They can't fix it. I'm like, that's it. That's right.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
changed. It changed.
And it's so interesting to me. Like, there's so much conversation nowadays about generational trauma. And it was something that, if these stories were that you were experiencing were back in like the 80s and the 90s, nobody was talking about generational trauma.
Yeah.
Everybody was going through these narcissistic, abusive patterns and
Yeah.
living these experiences. And as you said, where people are going, I don't feel so alone now. Nobody was talking about it.
Right. It's
A-
true. And even as a teenager, I couldn't talk about it. No
Yeah.
one was going to help me. Not back then.
Yeah.
No one was going to really do anything. And I knew if I ever really told an adult or a school member or, faculty or something, it was just going to be worse for me.
Yeah.
Nothing was really going to change then. And I knew that. And so I just plodded through it. I had a way, and it's not the right way by any means, of turning my emotions off.
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel it. I would shove it down deep. And I was like, I'm not going to feel this today. I don't want to think about what's just happened to me. I just want to move on. I just want to go. And Tom would be like, that's not good for you. Like, we need to talk about this. You need to feel this. Don't you feel it? I'm like, I don't want to feel it. I
Yeah.
don't want to feel sad. I don't want to feel hurt. I don't want to feel like these people are treating. I don't want to. And
Yeah.
he would pull it out of me. He was the only one that I could tell everything and was witnessing some of the things that were happening. So when I got older, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it to my next husband. I was like, he wasn't there. He doesn't need to know all that nonsense. He doesn't need to know how horrible my parents were.
Yeah.
And then for him too, it was very eye opening and emotional for him too. He was like, Natalie, I had no idea. Like I didn't know. And I was like, well, because I didn't want you to know.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's the value that each of us have with our own experiences is we get to decide who is going to be able to witness this part of me and who doesn't get to witness this part of me. And it is a choice that each of us make. And
Right.
yet, at the same time, I feel like when you can express to someone, this is the pain I've gone through. This is the lack of love that I've experienced. This is what I know of relationships. It
Yeah.
can build kind of a deeper understanding in those relationships to know how do I best love you? How
For
can I
sure.
best take care of you in these ways that your parents necessarily couldn't? Now, Tom feels like he's a spirit guide that was here in earth form. Like for a
Oh,
16-year-old boy to have these kinds of conversations with you and even to say like, no, you need to feel this and whatnot, especially at a time where nobody was talking about it.
and a boy. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm supposed to be doing that. I'm like, you're what? This is like
Yeah.
roles reverse. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's like an easy to fall in love with character of your life.
yes.
What was his upbringing like that kind of helped to mold him to become this kind of person? Or like, do you know that part of him or where this all came from?
What's funny is he was not super close to his parents. I mean, he
Okay.
had more of a functioning home than I did, but his father was a little aggressive as well. But again, nothing to what I experienced.
Yeah.
But he had ulcers. He had stomach ulcers. And he said it was because that's why he always wanted me to talk. It's because he said he wouldn't talk and he would just shove it all in there.
Mm,
And he started to get stomach ulcers at the age of 15, like right before I met him.
okay.
So bad, the pain was so bad, he was hospitalized. And so he said when he was in the hospital, he was trying to decide whether he wanted to live or die. He was like, I think I'm just going to end it. Like, this pain is just too painful. I'm not happy. I don't have anything to look forward to. And then his family moved. He got attacked at school one day. He got beaten up. So his family moved in to the street right by mine. And that's how we first saw each other. It was I
Okay.
saw him drive by one day and I was like, hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a little, So when we started talking, he says he saw me a full month before we ever spoke. I'm a reader. I read 3, 4 books at a time. And I've always been like that. I'll get a little disinterested. I'll pick up another book. I'll read this one. I'll jump back in that one. Well, on the bus, I always read. And so he said he would see me every day reading on the bus and said I just looked so peaceful and so serene. He never wanted to be like, hey, I'm Tom, or he couldn't interrupt me.
Yeah.
And so one day he got on with a friend and I happened to notice him this time. I guess my nose wasn't in the book. And I asked my friend, I'm like, well, who's that? And he goes, oh, that's Tom. That's my new friend Tom. He just moved in. I was like, oh yeah, he moved in that house back there. And he's like, yeah, yeah. And so that was it. That was his window. Like that was he jumped in my seat. He was like, hey, I'm Tom. You're always reading a book. He's like, that was it. This is my chance. But later when we started having deeper conversations, he said that he felt like he didn't have a reason to live until he saw me.
Oh, wow.
He said when he saw me, he realized I can be happy. I can feel something again. He said, I began to feel something when I saw you. And he goes, I thought, like, I already know her. Like, how do I feel like I already know her? Like she's going to get me. This is the girl that's going to get me.
Mm,
And so then we started having those conversations about if he ever died, and we've been together forever and every life. And I didn't balk at it. I would kind of laugh and I'd be like, "Are you serious?" Like he's like, "No, I know. Like we're going to be together again in another life after this. This is just one of many."
yeah,
And I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Well, that sounds good to me. That doesn't sound like a problem." So, and
yeah,
he goes, "You got me. Like you were the girl that got me." And so then he felt he could be open with me and say things like that to me, and I took it all in. I always felt like I was learning something from him.
mm,
And I do think he had a feeling. He would say, he goes, "We got to move fast. We got to get going. Like we got to live this life. We got to move now. We got to get married. We got to do this." And I was like, "Slow down." I feel like he knew he wasn't going to be here long. Like
yeah.
he knew like he was here for a short time. Even if he didn't really know it, something was there like, let's get going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even the fact that he was saying to you, like, do you want me to contact you? Like, like
Yeah,
that to me is saying, yeah, he knew something was up and he was really setting it up perfectly for you. So that way, when the phone call came, it wasn't a point of like, what the hell is happening here?
it
But
didn't
just
freak me
being
out.
able to receive it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's amazing the things I have him in like letters from him, writing him saying, like, "I'm going to contact you. I'm going to reach out to you. You don't ever have to worry about being alone. I'm always going to be around." And when I was writing the book and I pulled out all these old love letters from high school and journals, and I'm like, because, I remembered it. I
Yeah.
remembered him saying that stuff. And I'm like, gosh, he even wrote it down. Like it's all right here.
Yeah.
So yeah, he fully believed it. So, and he did it. The
Yeah.
boy did it. The
He
guy
did
did it.
it.
Like he did it. So, and that's what's really amazing to me is like, how did you do that? Like how that's incredible. It's incredible. He was incredible in life and in death.
Yeah.
And I've had other moments where, and not everyone believes in psychics. I've gone to a couple of psychics. I went to a psychic about a year after he passed away with my mother. There was a psychic fair. She and I had never done anything together. And I don't know why we found ourselves there together, but we did. And we're walking around this psychic fair and we're looking at crystals and little amulets and looking at people's booths. And we're like, oh, this is kind of cute. And keep in mind, I haven't told her anything. I haven't
Okay.
told her anything about the reach out, and I never did. And I don't know if she knows now. I don't know if she read the book or not. But so this psychic is about 10 feet from us, and there's tables of psychics, tables of people
Yeah.
selling things and, you know, incense. And she stands up and she walks over towards me and my mom, and she goes, "I need to talk to you. Can you come over here?" And my mom's like, "We're not interested." Like, no, like, like, don't sell us anything.
Yeah.
And the lady looked at her and then looked at me pointedly and goes, "I'm talking to you. Would you come over and talk to me?" She goes, "There's a young man that wants me to talk to you." So then my ears perk up and I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And by this time, I don't have a wedding ring on. It's been about a year. So I've
Yeah.
taken it off. And I kind of look at her and she goes, "He's behind you and he's jumping up and down." And I went, "Okay." And she goes, "He's pointing to you." She goes, "And he has no shirt on." She goes, "He has no shirt on. He has on shorts, some jeans." She goes, "But he's jumping and he is smiling and he is pointing at you and wants you to come over to me." And I kind of turn around and I look back and I kind of smiled and then I turn back around stone faced, and she goes, "Oh, he loves your smile. Like
Mm,
he loves your smile." So I'm like, "All right. So what do you want?" So we go over there. And so my husband used to chew tobacco. Hated it, nasty habit. It's gross.
yeah.
So then he started chewing sunflower seeds as a deterrent. And he would put the whole seed in his mouth, he would chew them up and he'd spit the seeds out. So you have almost that same habit.
Yeah.
And she goes, "He's chewing and chewing and chewing and spitting something out." She goes, "I don't know what he's doing." She goes, "But he keeps spitting this stuff out." And I was like, "Yeah, that's him. Like that's
The
him."
one thing I didn't like.
Yes, I'm like, that's him. And she goes, "And he has no shirt on." And I was like, "You said that." I said, "The minute he was in the door, his shirt was always off.
Mm,
It was always off." And she goes, "Okay." She goes, "He wants me to tell you a few things." And she goes, "He tells me that he got to tell you goodbye." And I went, "Well, goodbye." And she goes, "Well, he told you something after he," and I went, "He did. And my mom is like, what does that mean? And I was like, don't ruin the moment. Don't get involved.
Yeah.
And so we had a little back and forth, and it was him.
Yeah.
Like, it was him. And I know it was him. And so when I left there, I just felt again so much more relief. Like, I'm like, he's with me. He's with me. He's still cheering me on. He was my biggest cheerleader, and I could see him just smiling and pointing at me because he loved me and I loved him. And I know it was him. I know it was him.
Yeah. I trust from the goosebumps that I have that it was him, which is awesome. Now,
Yeah,
I mean, it's how long has it been since he passed then?
30 years.
30 years.
It's been
So
30.
beyond the phone call and this reading with the psychic, what has that journey looked like for you in terms of like receiving signs or more messages from him that help to confirm your belief in heaven is real? And I believe as well that heaven is real, but I
Awesome.
would just to love hear more about what your signs and what those messages have looked like for you.
With and then I did my daughter's book, It's Daddy's Not Gone, and I always made sure she knew that he was there in a different form, like cardinals and things like that.
Yep.
And always those little moments where only you know when you feel something and you know your person's there.
Yeah.
There's those little moments. But at my book, when it was about to come out, See You Later is about to come out. It was about a week before it was coming out. And we had a festival here in town, and there was a psychic. And this is 30 years later.
Yeah.
And now my daughter is fully grown, has her own children, and she's there with me with my husband. And I was like, let's go see a psychic. I haven't seen one in a while. Let's go, let's go see what happened. The book's coming, like maybe something good will happen. Let's see. And she's like, okay. So we go in, and they wouldn't let my husband in, but they would let her in. So we went in this little room, we do the card thing, we pull this out, and this is all the God's honest truth. The psychic starts to cry. And my daughter's next to me. She's standing, and I'm sitting across from this woman, and she's crying. And I said, what is going on? And she goes, there's someone in the room. She goes, there's someone in this room right now that's guiding my hand on these cards. And she goes, it's a he. He loves you so much. It's making me cry. And I was like, oh gosh, really? You kind of play dumb. You kind of like, oh, well.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? Okay. And my daughter's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and she goes, he feels so much love for you, and he is so proud of you right now. She goes, I don't know what you have going on or what is about to happen, but he is so proud of you. And I was like, oh, I said, well, I can't cry, because if I start to cry, I won't stop. Like, I can't cry. And she goes, he's talking to me about reincarnation and how somehow he wants to come back and be with you. Would that be okay? And I was like, no. I was like, no, don't know. I was like, I'm old. Like, I'm about to go myself. I'm like, no, like, no. And she's like, he wants to be with you again so badly. It's making me cry.
Mm.
And I was like, oh. And she goes, so what's going on in your life right now? He tells me that there's a marriage about to happen. My oldest son was getting married the next day.
Okay.
And he wants to know, would it be possible to be reincarnated in that union? If they have a child, could he come back into your life that way? And I was like, no. I was like, no, just tell him to stay put. Just stay put. I'll be there. Like, I'll be there, eventually. Wait for me. Like, because if he comes in, then we can't be. I was like, wait for me. And she goes, okay. She goes, that's how bad he wants to be with you again.
Mm.
He sees that union as a chance to come back. And I was like, that's so wonderful. Like, that's so nice. And my daughter's sitting there, and she's like, what is going on? And I'm like, this is usually how it goes. Like, it's, just this. And I don't feel it's odd.
Yeah.
It felt totally normal. And she goes, I want to let you know, I've never cried when I've done someone's reading. I've never sat here and started to cry. She goes, please don't think I'm weird or anything. And I said, no, I don't think you're weird. I said, that's him.
Yeah.
That's him at work. That he is so emotional and powerful and feeling. I said, I totally believe it. And she goes, well, he loves you. She goes, he's loved you. He's loved you forever, and he's waiting for you. And I was like, oh, okay. I was so happy my daughter got to hear a little bit of it,
Yeah.
because she doesn't remember her dad, because
Yeah.
she was only 16 months old when he died. And when she read the book, The first thing she told me when she read the book, my husband had a terrible mouth. He had a potty mouth. He always had, even when we were dating, he always, it didn't bother me. He always had that. And she goes, why didn't you tell me you talk like that? She goes, I've always talked like that. And you're always like, stop that. And I'm like, well, I'm like, I was like, I'm just trying to be a mom. Like, don't,
Yeah.
and she goes, I feel so much closer to him, Mom. She goes, the things you were describing and having him say about having to hurry up and live and when he was depressed. And she goes, I feel so much closer to him now. She goes, I feel
Mm,
like I know him now.
yeah.
So, and when she had that moment in the psychic room, we left, she goes, gosh, Mom, he really still loves you. Like he still loves you. I was like, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think really what's so beautiful about what you're sharing with your daughter and how she now feels closer to him by just even understanding who he was as a person.
Yeah.
Um, it again emphasizes to me why it's so important that we tell these stories, why we tell, yeah, they had a potty mouth, they curse like a sailor, and that's exactly where you get it from, and
That's it.
celebrate it. Like that's what you
Yeah.
inherited from dad,
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand you as a mom going, okay, stop.
Yeah. Like enough. Yeah. And the funny thing is, like, he's never left my dreams. He's always in my dreams.
Yeah,
And I remember every time he's in my dreams, and I remember that he's dead.
yeah,
It's not a dream where we're like back in high school and we're hanging out or have this. I'm always very aware that I'm in the dream with him and he's gone.
yeah,
And we talk in the dream and he's like, I wish I could be, I wish I could be there when you wake up. Like I wish, I'm sorry I'm only in the dream. And I'm like, I'll take the dream. Like
yeah.
he's always in the dream. And when I was writing my book about us, he came to me in a dream and he reminded me of something I had forgotten. And he
Amazing.
said, he said, you have to put this in the book. And it's an embarrassing moment. It's a private moment. And I was like, I'm not putting that in the book, dude. That's not. And he goes, you're absolutely putting it in the book. He goes, it's funny and it's relatable and people will understand. We were teenagers. And I was like, all right, I'll put it in the book. And that scene in the book when it's he and I in his bedroom and his mom comes in and I was mortified. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
He reminded me about that and I put it in the book because he wanted it in the book. Bizarre, but I was like, that's what you want in the book. Okay, that's what I'm going to put in the book.
But it probably shows, and I haven't read the book, but I am definitely purchasing it and giving it a read.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
it really does just go to show that humanness, the teenagers getting caught in the boyfriend's bedroom or whatever by the mom, like
Yes,
we've all had an experience like that.
yes.
It is a
And
part of life.
nobody else knew that but he and I.
Yeah.
I don't know if his mom, I hope she's blocked it out, but because he wanted it, I put it in there. And I have had people comment like, oh, like I thought that scene was funny. Like that was, that was funny. I was like, I was mortified. But yeah, that's it's life. I put all the good, the bad, the ugly, it's all in there. Like it's not a secret anymore. It's out there for people to feel. And
Yeah.
I have had classmates that I wasn't close to in high school for various reasons. I was fairly private. And they're like, my gosh, Natalie, like we would have had so much fun. I wish I had known you in high
Mm.
school. Like I love your story. Like I saw you at school and I saw you a totally different way. And then I read this book and they're like, you're not that. Like you're someone else. And I'm like, well, it's just school, right? It's
Well, yeah,
everybody.
it's the high school experience where
Yeah.
everybody's judging everybody and thinking no
Yes.
one is like them and whatnot. And then we grow
Yes.
up and realize, oh, they were actually a really cool person I could have really connected with.
Yes. And I've had so many other friends that have said, I was going through something very similar to you in my home.
Mm,
And I was sort of friends with them. And they're like, gosh, if we had only said something, if we had only looked at each other one day and said something, we would have both known that we were all going through that. But again,
yeah.
that's high school. You keep your secrets.
Yeah. And it's really a hard part of the human condition is a lot of us think I can't speak about this, whether it's, a message from spirit and, your ex-husband or, and I don't even think it's considered to be an ex-husband, but your
Yeah.
husband
Yeah.
contacting you from beyond. We
Yeah.
keep that secret very private because we don't want people to think we're crazy.
To
But
judge
when we're
us.
going through abuse and whatnot as well, we also keep that part of us secret because we don't want to be shamed for it or to have authorities called or whatever. Like, we
Right.
really do everything to protect ourselves from expressing that truth.
Right. And that's part of the reason of writing the book is just I really want people to know that there are people like us out there that have experienced things that others have not, and that doesn't make us crazy. It doesn't
Yeah.
make us any more special either. It's just simply we have had these experiences and it's changed us. It's changed our way to view everything. I don't view anything like I used to after that phone call.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. And then were you a believer of anything prior to getting into relationship with Tom? Like, what were your kind of thoughts and ideas about heaven and expressing yourself and all of that?
Now, I relied on wishes a lot because
Okay.
of my home. I was always wishing for another life or wishing to be outside of this life or wishing for something else. I prayed. I prayed to God. And my mother is Catholic, my father's Protestant. We
Okay.
were never super churchy. We would go to church every once in a while. I'm baptized. And that was, again, part of the, when Tom died, I kept worrying about him not being baptized.
Mm,
I was like, will you get into heaven? Like, what's going to happen to you? Where are you going to be? I need you to be there when I get there. Like, where are you?
yeah.
So that kind of thing. But as far as feeling like there was something more, there was something like that the veil is very thin and they're right there. I didn't feel that then, not so much. But then after I wrote the book, I told my daughter a story that I, again, not told anyone. I don't think I even told Tom this story. I was lying in bed one night and my parents were really going at it. They were yelling and screaming, and it was a really bad time. I think he was hitting her. And
Mm,
I remember laying in my bed and I wasn't so much wishing anymore, but I kept thinking, I want to be anywhere but here.
mm,
I want to be anywhere but here. I don't want to be in this home anymore. I don't want to be in this bedroom anymore. And the next thing I know, I saw myself I was above and I was looking at myself.
yeah.
And for a long time, I thought it was a dream. I was about 8 or 9, and I saw myself laying there. And I remember the choice, like, I can just go. Like, I don't know where I was going, but I was like, I can just go. And I started to float, and it scared me. And I immediately was next thing I opened my eyes, and I was like, did that just happen? Like, what just happened? Like, what was that? And I told my daughter this story, and she goes, Mom, she goes, that's part of it. She goes, that was like your third eye. She goes,
Yeah.
that was like you were about to really experience something. Like you were like planning, you were astral planning. I was like, what? And she goes, I bet that's why you could get the call from Tom or why you ended up having the dreams. Or she goes, you opened something up. And I had no idea about any of that until just like last year when I told her that story. And
Okay.
I was like, well, that must be it. Like that, I don't that must be it. I don't know. But that was what I experienced in my own little private world. And again, I never told anyone. And
Yeah.
then I'm like over 50 telling my daughter, and she's like, Mom, that's huge.
It is huge. It is huge. And this is not necessarily connected to this, but still a question that I want to ask is, do you practice as a psychic medium? Do you connect with other people's loved ones and whatnot that have crossed over? Because it sounds to me like you've got a gift, whether
I
you
have
recognize it or not.
I have something. And I've always
Okay.
known I have something. We call it ESP. I mean, I have something. And my kids all know it. My husband knows it. Something will happen and I will say what's about to happen. I'm like, this is about this, we're about to, and they're like, what? And then it happens.
Yeah.
Weird little connections with my children. Like I can be getting ready when they were younger, I'd be getting ready to yell up like, hey, come down for dinner. And my son would go, what did you say? Like I had already yelled it.
Yeah.
So things like that. There's these weird, and I can feel things when they're happening to my kids or my husband. Like I know something's going on, and I'll pick up the phone and they'll call and they're like, "What? How do you know that? Like how do you?" It's that kind of thing. Like I have that,
Yeah, and
whatever that.
it's the same like when it was leading up to Tom's death, the dreams and everything that you were having, you're still receiving this information from a source.
Yes, yes. I think I will always have that, and it's weird. I don't lean into the whole empath thing because I do feel like sometimes people label themselves. They label themselves rather than someone telling them, hey, I think you're an empath. I think you have this ability. And I never wanted to label myself like I'm an empath. I can read your mind. I can do this.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Yeah.
Whatever title you want to give it, I experience it.
Yeah. And I mean, to myself, my kind of thought on empaths and how we kind of develop is often it's those who have grown up in these abusive homes or really loud homes or whatever. And so from a very early age, we learn to have these kind of feelers out. Like, is it okay for me to exist here? What
Yeah.
kind of emotional mood are you in right now? So I know how I'm supposed to be. And I always do it like this because when I was a child, it often felt like I was on these puppet strings of who does mom need me to be today?
Oh my
Who
God.
does dad need me to be today? And I learned how to read the energy. And so it's not like it's a psychic gift that no one else can have or anything. This was just the development of my humanness
To
on no
survive.
to survive. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. It's so funny that you can relate to that. That is so, that resonates. That is so me. I could feel the energy in my home when I would walk in and
Yeah.
know I'm not going in the family room. I'm going to my room.
Yeah.
Like I know something's off right now. I'm not going to get in that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, very, very true. And it is a survival mechanism at first. And then I
Yes.
carry it over into adulthood and I can just feel it. I just feel it.
Yes, 100%. And then you can kind of mature that because it's no longer like I'm not here to people please anybody. But
Right.
I'm still going to feel the energy and I'm going to be able to decide what do I want to do with the energy that I'm experiencing now? Is it
Wow.
something I need to step into to go, this person needs my help? Or is it something that I can go, oh, that's just an interesting energy for me to observe right now?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I love that you and the kids have this connection with each other as well.
Oh yeah.
And you and your husband as well. It's beautiful. And I guess the next question that I have is how does your now husband feel about all of this and this love that you and Tom have? Does he support you in what this first love of your life was and how you
Oh,
express it?
I'm so lucky. I
Yeah.
really am. I'm the unluckiest lucky person around. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my first husband and I, one of our first discussions again, we're talking about music as teenagers. And I'm like, well, what kind of music do you like? And he goes, well, my favorite bands are Rush and Boston. He goes, that's about all I listen to. And I was like, well, I kind of know them. And then I fell in love with them because he loved them.
Yeah.
So my husband and I met on a blind date and we didn't get to have a free flowing conversation. So we went on another date. And as we're pulling into the driveway, I looked at him and we have a 10-year age gap. We have 10 years different between us. And so he just found out when I graduated high school, it was just a few years, he's like, wow, okay. And so I'm like, well, what kind of bands do you like? Well, I'm thinking, what kind of music does he listen to? We got this age gap. And the first thing he says, well, my favorite bands are Rush and Boston. He goes, that's pretty much all I listen to. Exactly like that.
Wow.
I had to take a beat. Like I was like, are you here? Like, are you doing this? Are
Yeah.
you sending me this guy? Like, is this supposed to work? Like, and I do feel like it's like he was like, this is your guy. Like this is gonna be your next person.
Yeah.
And I went inside and I just remember going, I can't even believe that just happened. So when he read the book, he didn't even know that story. And he goes, I remember saying that to you. And see, I hid my love of those bands all this time because it hurt too much to listen to them. It
Mm.
hurt. It would make me sad and I would get sad about it. And then when I wrote the book, I just dove right back into those bands again. I was listening to them all the time. And he goes, I wish I had known how much you loved them. Like we could have enjoyed them all this time. And I was like, oh, I was too sad.
Yeah.
And so he is the kind of man that he worked about, I don't know, 6, 7 blocks from where my husband is buried. And I could call him at lunch and he would go by the grave and make sure the flowers were okay. The arrangement is nice. He will even go there on his own and he will trim it if if it's needing, like, he knows that Tom died, right? We didn't get divorced.
Yeah.
He died right in the middle of the good part, like right
Yeah.
in the thick of the good part. And I will always love him. And he loves how much I love and I have memories of him. He
Yeah.
he totally understands. He's one in a
Beautiful.
million. One in a million. Yeah. And when I wrote the book, he was just like, he goes, and he felt like he got to know him as well. Like, he got to know him a little better as well. And I was like, you guys would have gotten along. Like it would, it'd be a weird thing, but like one day when we're all up there, we're all going to get along. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then just one more question, and I ask this of all of my guests when I have them on this show. If you could tell the world one thing right now, what would you want the world to hear?
Oh gosh. Heaven is real. Heaven's real. Our people are waiting for us. They're out there. They're waiting for you as much as you're waiting for them. They exist. The veil is very thin. If you let yourself feel it, you will feel them. They are there. They're never too far away from you. They really are. And don't be afraid. It's going to be okay.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Oh,
much, Natalie, for joining me here today. And if anyone is interested in reading her book, it's available on Amazon. I will be putting the link underneath the post just so people have an easy way of accessing it.
oh, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to meet you, and I love what you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.